Boris Johnson has admitted he did mislead Parliament over the Partygate scandal. In a document given to a committee of MPs, the former Prime Minister accepts the House of Commons was misled by statements he made about the lockdown parties at Downing Street, but he insists he didn't do it recklessly or intentionally. It comes ahead of his televised appearance before a panel of MPs tomorrow. Here's our political editor, Robert Peston, on Boris Johnson's defence.
At last, the former Prime Minister is giving his defence to the charge that he lied to MPs about parties in 10 Downing Street.
Do you think you'll be vindicated?
Because although he attended 5 such parties during the pandemic, this is what he told MPs in December 2021.
All guidance was followed completely during number 10.
I have been repeatedly assured since these allegations emerged that there was no party and that no COVID rules were broken.
In a written statement to the Privileges Committee, which is investigating Boris Johnson's alleged misconduct, he said, "I accept that the House of Commons was misled by my statements, that the rules and guidance had been followed completely at number 10. But he insisted that when the statements were made, they were made in good faith. I didn't intentionally or recklessly mislead the House." He said he got it so wrong because, on the basis of assurances I received from those with direct knowledge, I honestly believed that these were lawful work gatherings and, as Prime Minister, I'm reliant on advice from officials. There's nothing reckless or unreasonable about that. Here are the Downing Street parties that took place while the rest of us were banned from having such fun. But Johnson says he had no idea they were wrong and no one told him. Though this former Downing Street advisor, Dominic Cummings, insists he did. Johnson says Cummings is not credible because he went from being friend to arch political enemy. In training for the ordeal, Johnson has raised concerns that the committee has been partisan and unfair. The Cabinet Minister in his own party disagrees.
I have confidence in the Privileges Committee to do that work. It's a cross-party committee. It has a Conservative majority on the committee. It'll produce its report and then it'll be a matter for the House of Commons. It's not a matter for the government.
Inevitably, initial judgment has a political flavour.
Those of us who sat in Parliament and listened to Boris Johnson's explanations, denials, and now see this report know that he is really taking us all for fools.
The evidence from Boris's submission shows that he didn't deliberately mislead the House of Commons, either recklessly or alternatively.
For the Cabinet meeting today, what happens to their former boss matters, because if he gets a severe punishment, he may have to fight a by-election to keep his seat, a humiliation for the entire Tory party. Robert Peston, ITV News.
Well, our UK editor Paul Brand, of course, helped expose the Downing Street Partygate scandal, and he joins us now. So, Paul, how does Boris Johnson's defence stack up?
Well, he didn't convince the Cabinet Office inquiry or the police investigation, but this is different. This is about whether he misled MPs. So let's take a look at some of the key claims in his submission today. Firstly, the birthday party. Now, this is important, of course, because this is the one event that Boris Johnson was fined for. He says when he was attending events like this, he was so sure that they were within the rules that actually Number 10 briefed the newspapers about this when they told the Times newspaper, which wrote a short article at the time describing how staff ate a Union Jack cake and sang Happy Birthday. But then Boris Johnson says in his evidence today, no cake was eaten and no one even sang Happy Birthday. So you start to see the inconsistencies emerging, even if some might argue that's minor. It starts to question some of this submission. Point number 2 is when Partygate then exploded into the public domain off the back of that video with Downing Street staff laughing and joking about a Christmas party. Boris Johnson says today that he asked his aides, look, were any rules broken? What should I say? And he was told by his Director of Communications, Jack Doyle, I think you can say I've been assured there was no party and no rules were broken. That is what he said to MPs. He says he was just doing what aides told him to do. I think tomorrow the committee, they will point to other evidence, other messages shared between his staff that said things like, I'm struggling to come up with a way this one is in the rules in my head. Boris Johnson says he never saw those messages. And then finally, I think what the committee will ask tomorrow is, does Boris Johnson have a fully functioning pair of eyes? Because when you look at events like this, a leaving party for another member of staff, well, they will say, how could he survey that room and think it was within the rules? He says, well, he was so convinced that he allowed the official photographer to take that photo. But if you then go to the Number 10's official social media accounts, you won't see that photograph posted anywhere. In fact, none of the Partygate pictures were ever posted there. So some might ask, why not? All of this makes for pretty acrimonious evidence tomorrow. I think those who like Boris Johnson will say this is a reminder he can draw a crowd. I think those who don't like Boris Johnson will say he sometimes draws a crowd for the wrong reasons.
Either way, compelling viewing. Paul, thank you.